I never felt threatened. I know others really have, and people that associated with our work had times that they had to struggle with what they had encountered. And you know these people too. And so, but I personally never felt that way. I felt a different kind of connection. And so, like with the Skinwalker Ranch, I felt like I was a caretaker. I was a facilitating, hosting people, to certain kinds of folks to come to the property, government people to come to the property, and scientists to come there and do things, but I was a facilitator is all. And never threatened. I had a great night's sleep every single time, and some other people did too, you know. There's an aspect though to this survival work, it's a bit different. And there's a piece of it that, and if people bother to read the literature, if you bother to go into the books and really try to find quality material, and it's out there by the hundreds of books, by quality authors, you'll come across publications that after a while you'll start to get a consensus because of multiple sources coming at you, and you'll start to get a consensus of a feeling of things. And so it does have this aspect of things to be concerned about. And you know, I've told you that since we formed this institute in June, all of a sudden we had people around us that started having things happen, and not all of it was rosy. Okay, so I mean, this is family members, myself, my staff, and none of this we expected. None of it, we hadn't asked for anything, positioned anything, decided to do any this kind of research. Our whole intention to begin with was simply trying to get ourselves up to speed in the literature. Excuse me. After being away from this for so many years, focusing on a space world, right? That's been mainly what I've been doing, except for the Skinwalker Ranch thing for 20 years, is the space world has been huge in my life to pursue. The legitimate parochial kind of, you know, using fire engines, rockets to get you there. So we didn't expect anything like this to happen, and so this is a different. This Holy Grail is different than the second Holy Grail. If the second one being the ET is a little bit lower, and this first one, is there any part of your consciousness that survives your bodily death? That's a big deal. That's a huge story. That's gigantic.
Like I said, people don't want to think about it or talk about it in general, because they don't want to think about dying or
That's right.
contemplate that.
Yeah, who does?
There's no getting around it. But if the project that we're about to discuss, if it is successful, if you could establish contact, if you could prove it, it could be a great benefit to everyone. I mean,
well, you have to be, you know, a little careful about what you wish for. So, on the face of it, communication sounds great. And that, by the way, that has been tried forever, ever since the Oracle of Delphi. I mean, you can go back thousands of years and that's been attempted. So it's not now these, you know, the last 100 years through electronics and using some kind of electrical apparatus to try to have some kind of communications. And you know, communication can be at all different kinds of levels. There might be a communication that just causes you an awareness that there is something else there that is acting upon something. So you're not getting any kind of message other than I'm acting upon something. You know, it might just be a, you know, that, as they say, I'm not a robot type of thing, and we've heard that. So
We'll divert a little bit, then we'll come back to the BICS and the consciousness mission. So you're diving into consciousness. You're reaching out to try to figure out if communication is possible, or is there somebody on the other side?
Right.
And then you dive into UFOs in a big way for a number of years. I know in 1989 we produced a series that was our first contact. After that aired, and the whole Lazar story came out.
right.
Was that a trigger point for you, or you were already diving into UFOs with the same vigor and enthusiasm?
I had committed myself before that to investigate, and one of the things I started off was reading, trying to get myself up to speed. I read a book a week for a year, just so I could talk the talk and understand if people were talking about cases in Colombia or in Argentina or in California or wherever. I knew the basics about a whole lot of observations, encounters, and witnesses stories and events and crash retrieval incidences or trace cases or whatever. And so it's just so that I understood what people were talking about, right? So you have to go through the literature first and put the effort into reading and just not go off half-cocked. And so I'm still in this mode here in the survival work and still trying to read in spare time and trying to network with people, you know, that commune with other folks. And like yourself, you know, George, you're an amazing journalist in what you know and all that you've made it your job to get into and investigate. And so I'm kind of doing that too, because I look at myself as a researcher and maybe a facilitator, if I can help in any way to try to help people find answers, and all of us kind of collaborating together.
Well, it's a steep learning curve in both of those topics. You got to read a lot to get your head around the basics.
Yeah, and in some ways it almost feels like it's not intended for you to know in some ways, right? You have these walls, these glass walls that all of a sudden in both of these topics, and it makes it very, very tough to try and get further. You get teased by so many kinds of things, right?